And here, let's grab our extra stuff that we gained. Heck yeah. More Saint Courts and stuff. More tickets. Maybe we'll go for MP2 Morgan. I'm probably not going to go for it. So let's begin Orleans, the next section. So, I said before that I would give you guys an idea of whether or not the story is any good or worth. I happen to think Orleans is a little low on the totem pole. Fuyuki, I think, is a pretty well-written prologue opening tutorial. It is super worth your reading. Orleans, not so much. It's not the worst out there, but it's still pretty weak. Anyway, let's put our big Morgan on the field. Hell yeah. Big Morgan. Then let's also get Waver there. You might think, why am I going to put this level 1 nerd here with our level 80 and 100 gigachads? Well, you see, chat. Whoops. He can help NP charge. That's it. Actually, you know what? Fuck him. You get out of here, too. Tamamo Cat, get in there. We unga, we bunga. Three Berserkers on field? Hell yeah. With this lineup, we ain't even discovered fire yet. That's how unga bunga we're going. Now, the low-level Tamamo Cat is going to be much weaker than our other two things. And hell, my Morgan is going to be much weaker than this level 100 Morgan. It's just how levels work. But just having the extra 1.5 times damage helps a lot. But you may be wondering if you're using this as kind of I'm new to the game as a bit of a guide. Is it better to use a lower level servant that has class advantage or a higher level servant that doesn't? Whether they're class disadvantage or just neutral. The answer is the higher level servant. Pretty much every time. Almost 100% of the time, the higher level servant is the better one. Levels relate to directly correspond to your attack and HP stats. So the higher level someone is, the more attack and HP that servant is going to have. For example, the level 80 Morgan I have right now has 4,000 less HP than the level 100 Morgan I'm borrowing from the account that I'm following. And has about 3,000 to 4,000 less attack as well. And that's, that's just 20 levels worth of stats right there, Meanwhile, if I were to say take the Waver, the Zhuge Liang, the reason I'm saying Waver is that the human appearance of that servant is named Waver and is from Fate Extra. It's from the anime. Character from the anime. You know what it is. So I'm sorry if I say Waver. I mean Zhuge Liang every time. But I'm just so used to calling him Waver from knowing the anime and stuff. Anyway, if I were to take that servant and level him to, say, 30, he will be doing more damage than the Tamamo Cat at level 12 that I have. Despite the fact that she does 1.5 times damage, his attack stat will be just that much higher than hers, that the raw numbers are going to be better. But because he hasn't gained any experience, got no levels, he's only 1, he's not as good as her. That being said, I will be leveling him as the next servant to start leveling up. In order to get his skills unlocked, send him, that kind of stuff. So eventually he'll get to that point. Maybe like at the end of Orleans, maybe at the end of Orleans, I'll go ahead and level him up. No reason to right now. We're absolutely going to smash through Orleans with a Morgan, and a Tamamo cat. That it's not even a question. Gameplay wise, the early game for Fate Grand Order is very, 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 very easy. And because they want players to be able to catch up as fast as they possibly can, you're going to notice that almost every single node for the story is going to be 1 or 2 AP cost. And normally the main story nodes are going to be like 24 AP, something along those lines, 20 to 24 in that range, with a 5 AP on a boss fight. And AP, I think, stands for action points. It's just, as long as you have AP, you can do the quest. The quest is going to have an AP cost and yada yada. But every time you level up, you gain 100% of your current AP appended at the end of your current stack of AP. Which is why right now, if we get out of here and I look at my current AP, it's going to be like 200 out of 28 or something like that. 211 out of 31. Our max AP is 31 right now. 211 is what we're at. You can overcharge in this game. Now, if you're overcharged, the reason you don't usually want to do that, if you're overcharged, it means that you're not going to gain any passive AP that recovers over time. But I'm playing to catch up right now on my brand new account. I'm a brand new player, man, which means I'm just gonna have infinite AP. The AP costs are so low, you will never spend it. Unless you really, really go out of your way, I guess. Yeah, I got Morgan on this made for tutorial account. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't planning on, but here it is. It's the beginner's luck thing. Yeah, exactly. No, I forgot the most important step of summoning the banner servant that's brand new on your first 10 pull. Make sure to go to Reddit on the r/Grand Order subreddit and then create your own thread that says, hey, I just summoned this servant in my first try. Are they any good? Especially if they're a really good servant like Morgan, so that everyone gets really upset at you. That's the most important step. I forgot about that. To just go online and humble brag. Guys, is this servant any good? I got them on my first ticket, but I don't know. I was thinking of maybe not using. Oh, anyone that makes a post like that online knows exactly what they're doing. Don't actually do that. I was thinking of burning this servant. I don't like their look. Reminder, I am a huge troll. And I especially like rattling the cages. So don't take that advice. The rest of my advice you can take. I'll be straightforward with you for the rest of it. Anyway, for the time being, there's not much gameplay-wise for us to worry about. We're just gonna skip and then unga bunga our way through any. There's nothing. hard here. The first thing that's going to show up and be even slightly hard for us probably isn't till like E Pluribus Unum, and even that won't be hard. Camelot's when... So, if you're new, you'll notice in my splits down there, I have the names of the places we're going to. Fuyuki, Orland, Septim, Okeanos, London, E Pluribus Unum, Camelot. Babylonia is below that, and then Solomon. That's all 9 of the opening Part 1 stuff. You're done with Part 1 once Solomon is done. When it comes to that stuff, it's all really, really easy until Camelot. Camelot is a straight-up heavy challenge spike. Camelot is like the first time the game ever gets even slightly hard, and it gets kind of hard at a couple of spots. So, when we eventually get there, I'll give you tips and tricks on how to do it as easily as possible and what servants are great for it, that kind of stuff. Until then, we're kind of just going to autopilot and press red card, win game. So we'll just think of other stuff to talk about. Blue Bomber asks, explain free quests to us. Sure. It'll be easier once we're on the main screen, the map screen. For every map in the game that you go to for your main story quests, after you clear a node, you can unlock free quests, or sometimes it might take until you clear the entirety of the story section before the free quests unlock. But free quests, you see, they have a certain AP cost. You see there is an arrow, and then an infinite. So once you reach that infinite, you get your first reward, in this case, a St. Quartz. And then every time afterwards that you do the free quest, if you hit the little I, it'll just be whatever one of these 6 drops is. You have a chance of getting those each time. So when you are completely new to the game, the first thing to do with free quests, once you're kind of done with story stuff and you've caught up a bunch, is to just complete the 3 runs to get your free St. Quartz. Free St. Quartz, free St. Quartz, free St. Quartz. Afterwards, the use of free quests, when they hit the infinite symbol, is to grind them for material drops, which are used for leveling up skills on your servant, which we haven't done because we don't have the materials for that, and for ascending your servants. But a very brand new account, we're not going to worry about that too now. We're just playing catch-up at the moment. Catch-up, catch-up, catch-up. Catch-up will take a little bit of time. Now, I can totally finish this catch-up and get all of Solomon tonight, and I plan to. But if you're going at a more leisurely pace, by which I mean you're doing what you should do and you're reading the excellent story and enjoying yourself and talking to the characters and getting your dialogue, then it'll take you a little bit longer. Might even take you a couple days, that kind of stuff. I wouldn't worry about that too much. But if you are instead trying very hard to catch up just so that you can participate in the events, which honestly I kind of suggest doing, and then going back and reading later, not the worst thing in the world to do. It does kind of mess with stuff a little bit in terms of story and how it feels, because you might forget what fight came after this story section and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm a little on the fence about it, but if you're just really, really, really grinding for the catch-up, then you're going to be ignoring free quests entirely. You're going to be just spamming those main quests, which no problem for you because they cost 1 to 2 AP, and you're going to be leveling up a lot and gaining more max AP and all that stuff. But if you only want to start reading the story once it gets good and you want to come back and read the less good stuff later, and I don't necessarily blame you, read Fuyuki. Skip all the way to Camelot. Read Camelot, read Babylonia, read Solomon. And there's your part 1 necessary reading. there's going to be some stuff that'll come up in some of the future stuff that'll reference Orleans, Septum, Oceanus, London, E Pluribus Unum at some point in time. But those stories and character interactions and everything like that are way lower quality than Camelot, Fuyuki, Babylonia, and Solomon. Way lower quality. It is not even a competition. And even Fuyuki itself is much worse than Camelot, Babylonia, or Solomon. It's a good starting point. I suggest reading it because it's the very beginning of the game, and it's actually solid. But like I said, if you want to skip Orleans, Septum, Oceanus, London, and E Pluribus Unum, literally half of Act 1, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Especially Septum. Septum is actually the worst written thing in all of Fate Grand Order. It is terrible. It's awful. And the real reason to get into Fate Grand Order for most people is probably because it's well written. Well written, good story. So, if you want well written, good story, Septum is not the place to go to. I'm not going to go over any of actually what's going on in the story stuff because spoilers. But yeah, Septum has really bad character interactions and a disappointing main story arc, and it basically exists entirely to jerk off Nero Claudius, and that's it. You could literally ignore all of Septum and you would lose nothing of value. So, yeah, that one's the most skippable in the whole game. Alright, what other game mechanics can I talk about? You know, I talked about what craft essences are good to put on your support servants and good to put on your servants, and namely, just a quick review here, a craft essence that will increase their main attack card damage, like for Morgan, a Buster increase, and increases their starting MP charge by at least 50%. There are lots and lots and lots of those. You mostly get them from playing events and then getting them from participating in said events. The vast majority of good craft essences in this game are actually completely free, given to you for participating in events. So you don't need to pull on any banners for the good craft essences, with minor exception. There are like 3 or 4 good craft essences that are in the pool at all times, and then once in a while there will be a good event craft essence that's in the pools. But 99.999 repeating % of your craft essences that are worth using, like say this one that's currently equipped to the Morgan that I keep grabbing, are from an event and completely free and will be given to you as long as you participate in the event, which is why it's a good thing to catch up to the story and be able to participate in the events in the first place. Because there are requirements for some events. Not all of them are going to have requirements that you have to beat, you know, at least up to this point of the game to participate in. The reason being there will be big story spoilers if you haven't played it before. And this game is heavily leaning in the direction of story is the most important thing. Gameplay and everything else is very secondary. Which, you know, I'd agree with for this game. So, like I was saying, when it comes to craft essences, you don't need to pool like crazy for them. This isn't like Genshin Impact where you need to pull the great weapon along with the character or else the character is a lot weaker or yada yada yada. Which is good. Because, you know, even though the pull rate for a servant isn't necessarily the greatest out there, at the very least, I don't also have to pull a weapon for them. And when games like double dip into you have to pull the character plus this piece of equipment for them to be great, then, you know, the rates and the costs start to equalize between FateGo and another gacha game. So, you know, there's that. And like I said before, you can absolutely beat this entire game with nothing but friend support servants and completely free-to-play servants from your side. I have unfortunately not gotten all of the free-to-play servants that I kind of wish I would gotten from the friend point summons, but we'll get them eventually through the course of this playthrough. This speed run. Speed tutorial. You know what? I'll actually list those friend point servants that you really, really want, and the ones to prioritize leveling up. Or I'll free servants rather than friend point specific. So free servants. Ash KDA Light, very high priority. Pretty much top priority. She's extremely good. She's very, very strong. She's a great support, guys. I know she's your starting servant. You might be thinking, but the starting free character is never that good. In this game, she is just that good. So Mash KDA Light, I'd say, is the top of your list of free servants to get leveled up. The next on that list, I would say, for a new account, is 3-star Archer Uriel. She's very helpful for a fight in Camelot that we will get to that a lot of people got stumbled on. Honestly, you can probably just do it with a friend servant like a Morgan or a Ku Alter or a Hercules or something like that. But, she's one of the strongest archers, single-target archers in the game, and she's free. I'm not even kidding. She actually is one of the strongest single-target archers in the game. She's better than plenty of 5-star archers. And specifically, it is anytime she's against a male servant that is either a saber or a berserker, she will completely destroy them. She honestly does insane damage. For example, on my already established accounts on NA and JP, I still use Uriel. I still use her often. She's that good. So, the next top priority, honestly, I'm probably going to try out doing the Gawain fight in Camelot when we get to it without using Uriel, but, you know, that'll be more of a test to see, like, okay, nowadays, do you really need her? Probably not, to be honest, but, I mean, I can't say she's bad or amazing. Amazing. Next high priority free servant, Hans Christian Andersen, who is a 2-star caster. He is a fantastic support servant, to be honest with you. He's right up there with Waver, Zhuge Liang. He is not quite as good, but close to it as Waver. Which I certainly don't say lightly, because that's comparing a 2-star to a 5-star. And generally in this game, the higher rarity, the stronger the servant. That's not 100% the same, because like I said, Uriel is better than some 5-star archers. But that is a generalized rule that you can work. As you would expect, you know, higher max level, higher rarity, more incentive to pull for said servant. So they're slightly stronger, yada yada. But, these all-stars that I'm mentioning right now, MASH, Uriel, Hans Christian Andersen, all hold their own and are comparable to 4 or even 5-star servants, sometimes even outdoing some of them. The next one I might suggest is specifically for one fight, and it is a 1-star berserker named Asterios. We'll get to that when we get to that. For the time being, he's not super high on the priority list and is well below the other ones I mentioned. And the next one I'm going to mention is for after your account's a little more established and you're actually farming stuff. One of the best farming servants in the entire game is a 1-star archer known as Arjuna. He has a very hard-hitting noble phantasm that does something very useful. It kills him. He kills himself with it. You might think, wait, Thor, why is that useful? Very simply, you just shot a very powerful noble phantasm that's probably going to clear the field, and you got rid of your very weak card-using 1-star servant, so the next servant in rotation comes in. And if the next servant in rotation is another support, so you got your 2 supports, 1 damage dealer set up, or another damage dealer, so you got like 2 damage dealers, 1 support, and you clear the next field with your next damage dealer, yada yada, then that's good. It's actually good sometimes to suicide one of your servants in order to clear out an easier wave, and then let your stronger servants come in for the harder wave that follows. He was, like, that 1-star archer was considered the best farming servant in the entire game for, God, I want to say, till Scotty came out, for years. And he's still good. Like, he's still very, very useful, very, very good, even in current year, like 10 years of Fate Go later, he's still one of the best. Now that's for when you're established. I'm gonna put this as a maybe. If you're having trouble with a boss fight, then the following servants I'm going to list are very, very helpful. They're all free. Saint Georgios, Leonidas, Gareth, and Mash again, because Mash is that good, she needs to be mentioned again. All of those servants have a taunt skill, which forces the enemy to hit them instead of anyone else on the field when you use it. And the reason that that is useful is because more than likely the reason you're having trouble with a boss fight with your new account is that your damage dealer's getting killed. Like, let's say you're borrowing this level 100 Morgan and you're using her for everything, and then a boss fight comes and the boss just keeps targeting your damage dealing Morgan and killing her, and you have to, and you're like, I can't beat it. If instead of bringing whatever else you're bringing with her, you have a lineup where the front character, the first character, has a taunt. The next character is a support. The third character is your damage dealer. The fourth character has a taunt. The fifth character has a taunt. And the last character, the sixth character, either has a taunt or is another support. Then what you're doing is you're playing with taunt mechanics. And the way that taunt mechanics work is if a servant that has taunt on them is killed, enemy's turn ends. If your taunted servant dies, their turn ends, which means they will use their whole turn killing that useless, non-damage dealing servant, and their turn's done, and you get to hit them again. Then your next servant coming in has a taunt, and they do it again. Then your next servant comes in, has a taunt. You see what I'm getting at here? Is that you can prevent them from being able to hit your damage dealer at all. That's why taunt is used so sparingly in this game, and so few servants have it, and almost no craft essences have it. Because when the game first launched, they put some craft essences out with taunt, and then the players are like, you know, with how taunt works, did you know you can do this and just ignore this mechanic in this boss fight? And they're like, damn, they ignored that mechanic and that feels bad. Let's not do that so much. And that's why any servant that has multiple turns of taunt, well, you can guess that they're very valuable. Does anyone in chat have any questions themselves for me to answer? Where would you find information about upcoming banners and servants? Well, you can go online and you can type FGO Wiki, and if you go to the fandom site, I know it's ugly. It's the fandom site. I hate the fandom wikias. But if you go there, you can then go to Events tab, and there is an Event List JP tab, and you can go through past events. And anything from today to 2 years in the past is upcoming stuff. Or, I think even on the Event List US, there's a Future Events tab, and then it'll give you a list of future events coming up, future summoning banners. You can also type into Google FGO summoning banners, and then a year, or upcoming summoning banners, something like that. And then you should be able to find those without too much trouble. Those are ways that you can see what the upcoming summoning banners are. They're not 100% set in stone. So, you know, there is a possibility of this event happened on the Japanese server on, I don't know, April 29th. And then on the NA server, the banner comes out instead on May something. Or sometimes the banner gets pushed around to a completely different time and a different banner is played here. But usually they follow pretty closely to whatever the Japanese schedule was. And they're not too far from each other. What am I speedrunning? We're speedrunning through all of Act 1 in Fate Grand Order, all of Part 1, all the way through Solomon. I'm also just doing a tutorial for anyone and explaining as many different mechanics and stuff as I possibly can during it. By the looks of this, I think end of Orleans, I might be able to go explain the Mystic Codes, which we haven't had a reason to talk about yet. I guess I'll do a moment to talk about them. So if you look to the right, you got this master skill. We have on the base Mystic Code, and Mystic Codes are the outfit your character wears, which determine 3 different skills that you can have. The 3 skills on this one are First Aid, Heal an Ally, increase attack damage for an ally, and give ally evasion for the turn. Very basic, but also pretty darn strong. Like, for example, let's go ahead and pop this onto Tamamo Cat. Why not? There you go, Tamamo Cat. Extra damage. Enjoy your extra damage for the turn. Now, normally she wouldn't clear that Wyvern, but now she still doesn't clear the Wyvern, but she was real close, though. He was real close, at least. With that extra little damage. Oh, I'm skipping cutscenes, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. And as for RNG, yes, RNG would be a big thing, but I summoned Morgan in 110 pool with my Artoria, my Saber-Face senses. My Saber-Face summoning powers have made us strong by default. Can I explain the foes and when to use them? Sure. In fact, I'll do it real quick. You need to pull a certain servant or you reset? Well, I'm not really actually going for like any world time or anything. This is mostly a tutorial, but it's also a speedrun at the same time. I just grab these. Not Ironmon, no. Okay. Let me go to Enhance, Servant, and I'll just grab my Morgan one. So, one thing you'll see is right down here below the HP and the attack, you see point 0 of 1000, 0 of 1000. That is determined by foes. Oh, I don't have any foes that will actually work for her. That's unfortunate. Rip. But the way that these work is you feed them to a servant and they increase the servant's max HP or attack by however much depending on the rarity. Most of the time, the 3-star rarity is the one that people are going to use, plus 50, and whatnot. We currently don't have any I can actually give to Morgan, unfortunately. I was going to show it off, but I can't. Anyway, they go from 0.0 to 1000. If you are low on QP, this little stat here at the bottom, it takes QP to enhance. You want to do the foes at as low a level as possible because it'll cost as little as possible. The higher level you are, the more it costs. But we don't have any that we can do there, and I think I want to level up weight here. Either that or Tamama. Nah, wait. It'll be more. So we'll throw some levels into it. In the speedrun categories, free to play only? Probably. Gonna throw some levels into them. Woo! Get them up there! How'd I do that? Mass select XP? So, you see this thing where it says auto select. If you click that, then you have settings of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star, yada yada. Let's ascend. So, this is the next thing about servants, is once you reach their current level cap, which is usually going to be kind of low, you then ascend them, and that's going to cost you some materials, some items. You know how they like to nickel and dime you in gacha games, so that you got to do a little bit of grinding. Luckily, this game doesn't require too much grinding to get to a solid point. There you go, the cooler waiver outfit. Oh, we don't have these materials to go all. But auto select, type all, same class only, all only. That's the class of your experience. Okay, and it'll just autofill like that. Alternatively, if I just deselect everything, you can hold and drag your finger, my finger across it, because definitely for that. But generally auto select here. And yeah, we'll just chill with that for now. Nothing to grab there. I grabbed all my other stuff, right? Yes, with my finger. Technically, my mouse is still using my finger, so... Alright, so we took a moment there to talk about that. And now we're going to throw Waver in the front line. As opposed to Tamamo Cat, because he's going to do more damage because of his higher level now. If I leveled Tamamo Cat instead, she'd be helping with one-shotting stuff. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, I just want to use Morgan cards. 9 times out of 10, but don't worry, he'll do plenty of damage. Watch. See? More than enough. Does positioning actually matter? No. Only for certain skills. There are some skills in the game that'll do stuff like target the front character and then do something with them, or the back character, or the middle character. They're pretty rare, so you more often than not don't have to care about positioning. There is one specific servant that is really good for farming. He's also free, called Chen Gong, who has a noble phantasm that will sacrifice the servant in front in order to shoot off his NP, and it does really high damage because it costs the life of a servant to shoot off. Why he's good for farming. Which is why I have a habit of putting my supports in the front and my damage dealers in the back, because I want to sacrifice a support after they spend all their spells and then get another support in the rotation to spend their spells and keep rotating supports. So that's just habit that I've built up. I used to put all my damage dealers in the front before that servant came out. When that servant came out and said, hey, I'm going to kill the front servant, my damage dealer had to stop being in the front. Because, you know. I don't want my level 100 damage dealer getting eated into the enemy's face and dead. Is Morgan a good pull for a speedrun? Oh, you better fucking believe she is. Abso-fucking-lutely.
出陣します。私の後に続きな。簡単に終わらないように。
When I was going over earlier sagas, when I was going over, hey, these are the servants that are absolutely the best ones to pull if you are a new account, and you should probably ignore banners until one of them comes up. They are Castor Artoria #1, Morgan Buffet #2, or alternatively, Koyan Sky of the Light #2, or alternatively, Arjuna Alter #2, who is a berserker. One of those three for #2. So, is Morgan a good pull? Yes. Yes. She's amazing.
いいでしょう。私の足元で許しを乞いなさい。落ちよ。ロードレスキャメロット。
Good question, chat. Does Guts negate Chen Gong's sacrificial NP? The answer is no. The sacrifice will happen, but it will trigger the Guts. So basically, the servant will survive because of the Guts, but the Guts will get used, and then they'll respawn with whatever the Guts is going to. The Guts will then respawn them with whatever HP the Guts will spawn them at. And that depends on the skill. Some skills will respawn at like 500 HP, some at 1, some at like 1,000, etc. In fact, it's even a strategy with some servants. There are a couple servants that have an NP that deals more damage the lower their health is, that will purposefully put a Guts that revives them at 1 HP, Chen Gong yeets them with his NP, and then their MP is as powerful as it can possibly be. Yes. The Shinsengumi's Demon Vice Captain. Good old Hijikata. Here, let's just make sure we have enough. There we go. 2 Morgans, yes. One is mine and one is a support Morgan. Look, let me fulfill my fantasies of having 2 Morgans at the same time. Hey, now that you're rich, what are you gonna do? 2 chicks at the same time, dude. Sorry, Chad, I had some laundry I had to swap over, that's all. Lost time. Yeah, I'm super going for world record. Oh, man. I shouldn't have done that. Ah, time long. Guys, again, this is more tutorial than it is speedrun. Ah, man, time to reset until I get Morgan first ticket. Oh my god, imagine resetting for world record and be like, I need Heracles to start and I need to pull Morgan on the first draw. Otherwise, I gotta reset. How many resets would that take? Billion? A billion? Like 45 minutes I can shave off of you? I can definitely shave some time off if I wasn't doing tutorial stuff for chat and viewers and whatnot. Any other questions, chat, that you have for the game? Because we're going to be here for a little while, clearly. Take a little bit. And I am happy to answer any questions you guys have. Actually thinking of what to talk about it. Oh, no, no. AP is not a problem at all. Isn't the game going to make me do some ember farming? Not really. When you are brand new to the game, so one thing we got was automatically ascending a servant to their final ascension, which we did with Morgan, and it just put her at level 80. You also get a free 5-star, which is how we got Waver. And these limited time missions that you get, along with these extra missions, are giving us XP, embers, along with materials to level up and ascend. So it's very helpful. As for our AP, you see I have 341 out of 38 right now. Yeah, I don't think we have a problem with AP anytime soon. I don't think we're going to run out, guys. We have infinite AP because we're a new account. Level up not only refills, but it overfills. On top of the fact that they, highly reduce AP costs on any of the main quests. Explain which CEs are good. Again, this is a very broad stroke I'm giving, but generally, the attackers will want at least 50% starting NP charge. That is important, because it lets them get their MP off sooner. That's your attackers. Then, the secondary effect to look for is for it to buff the damage of their NP card. So, for Morgan, Buster increase, which, hey, the Craft Essence equipped gives 50% starting MP charge and increased Buster card effectiveness. And also MP strength up. So, hey, that's all kinds of good. That's generally what you're going for your attackers. If your attacker has an arts card for their NP, you want arts up. If they have a quick card for their NP, you want quick up. That stuff. Meanwhile, for your supports, either you want them to be equipped with something that's going to provide support in some way, shape, or form for their allies. There are craft essences that will give you critical stars at the end of each turn to be used on the next turn. Or perhaps you want to get their Noble Phantasm off quickly, so starting with a high charge or anything that charges their Noble Phantasm per turn with extra charge is good, so you can get it there. Or you want it to do increase something that you're gaining. Most people like bond point increases because bond points give them for sync quartz. Get sync quartz for leveling up your bond. Stuff like that. Those are like the big three. If you're setting up your support servant on your support list, you put that bond point increase in craft essence on, you glue it to their hand, and you never remove it. And then you're done. You will never ever take it off of them again unless you're replacing them with a better support in the future. And I mean it, chat. Get the glue out and fucking glue that shit to their hand. If you are setting up just to support for yourself, then, like I said before, that's when you start thinking about, okay, do I want to use their NP often? Or do I want them to make more critical stars for my attacker to crit with? Or, heck, do I just want them to increase bond points, or QP gain, or material drops, or anything like that? Then, those craft essences. There's also craft essences that can increase your defense and them to survive stuff. Or give them invincibility so they can take a couple hits without taking damage, that kind of stuff. But generally, your attackers are very set in stone for what you want. At least 50% starting MP charge, and then bonus damage on their Noble Phantasm card. Simple as can be. There are some situations where you'll want something different, but that's a bit rare, and you're not going to have to worry about that till you've caught up, and by the time you catch up, you should probably have an idea. And then, like I said, for the supports, Pretty much anything goes for the supports, to be perfectly honest with you. Supports are good because, very simply, their skills. 9 times out of 10, you have supports for their skills. Because their skills do, and I'll show it real quick with Zhuge Liang because I haven't used them. NP charge for the whole team. Targeted MP charge for his thing, along with increasing defense, along with increasing critical damage, along with his third skill would increase attack damage with NP charge. That's what you're looking for in supports. NP charge. Generally at least, the general strategy in Fake Go is 2 supports that have MP charge and specific color card buffs, buffing 1 damage dealer, and then you NP, and then the next turn you MP, and the next turn you MP, and the next turn you MP. You see what I'm getting at there? But that is, you know, once you've got your account established and once you've got a couple of the meta servants available and everything like that, that's something to worry about down the line when you're worried about farming free quests and getting materials and all that shit. If you're new, don't worry about that shit too much. Worry about completing the story, catching up a little bit, that kind of stuff. And yeah, as for when you want those more supportive craft essences that actually do stuff in battle, generally only when you're doing one of the harder challenge fights, a boss fight, you know? And you're having some trouble with it, or you think you might have some trouble with it, then you break out, alright, time for some combat craft essences for your support. Otherwise, I'll tell you exactly what I do for my support craft essences in almost every single battle level. Bond point increase on all of them. Bond point increase for you, bond point increase for you, bond point increase for you. My attacker gets a CE that does combat stuff, bond point increase for you, you know. Simple. When it comes right down to it, Fate Grand Order is a pretty simple game when it comes to the gameplay. It'll get a little bit more complex when you start catching up. But it's not that hard to intuit what works well in the game. It's a pretty simple turn-based RPG. If I didn't pull Morgan there, what servant would I have used the free jump to? 80. Waver, Zhuge Liang, 100%. Wouldn't have even been a question. Would not have even been a question. It would have been him, and end of story. The reason being is that would unlock his third skill. I'd have all 3 skills. He'd be a high-level 5-star servant with good skills that I'm going to be using for the entirety of Act 1. Pretty much whatever free 5-star you pick to grab, or alternatively, if you pull a strong 5-star servant from that list of about 5 or 6 servants that are super duper top tier, then there you go. That's what you want. Yeah, Juno's on that list. Good old Arjuna Alter, his world-splitting, insane damage.
何を喜んでいるのです。私が出たのです。
I personally think Morgan is slightly better than Arjuna Alter. She does a little less damage. But Arjuna Alter, like, Morgan's already overkilling stuff. Why would I need more Morgan? Now, I have one on my list of follows in case I need more damage. It's just unlikely I'm going to need it. Well, for everything because you can afford to? Well, if you can afford to, yeah, you can afford to, but I'm personally going to guess most people probably don't want to spend $1 bajillion on pools.
我が進化よ。あまりの仕掛けはできています。どこから潰したもの？よく言いました。
Morgan has really useful niches. I mean, Morgan brings more utility to also her really high damage. Not only does she lower enemies' defense, not only does she increase NP gain for the whole team, she also overcharges your NP level, which is extremely good. And she also has very strong guts and critical star creation and gathering to guarantee crits. Like I said, I think they're both extremely good, to the point that they are both high priority servants. Arjuna Alter does slightly higher damage. Morgan has slightly more utility. And I think the utility is worth more than the higher damage, because I'm doing enough damage either way. Why would I need more? It's as simple as that. As simple as that. But whichever one you get, if you have Arjuna Alter or Morgan, you're happy because they're just that strong. No complaints. And there's plenty of other really, really strong servants out there too, besides the ones that I listed that are the top 5 priority. The reason that I'm not, like, talking about them is just because... very simply. Very, very simple. When you are on a brand new account, and unless you have lots of money to burn and feel like tossing it into the fire, you're gonna want to get a couple of the meta servants, and the meta is dictated mostly by supports, which is why I listed supports as like my top thing. Because the supports enable your damage dealers to be insanely powerful. The amount of damage we're dealing with this level 100 Morgan right now is honestly pitiful. If I had the supports on my main account for her, she would be doing like 800% more damage. I'm not even kidding you. I could make her deal so much more damage easily with those supports. The supports are the enablers. That's why they're the most important. But still having one of the top 2 damage dealers in the entire game on your side is very, very, very good. So I put them also on the list of, hey, these are really good and it's hard to ignore how good they are. I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't put them on the list of, these guys are really good. Is Waver/Yuge Leon still in the meta for current content, or has he been replaced? For the current meta, he has been replaced. However, he's still usable. He's not peak of the meta anymore. He's still very usable. Like, when I say he's not in the meta, that just means that he's not one of the top, like, 10 servants in the game. He's, like, top 20 servants in the game, which is still really good. It's just, I don't need to think about any other servants than those top 10, because they're that much better, you know what I mean? And for what the real Durant said, they both struggle a bit in harder quests. This is why I like Morgan more than Arjuna Alter. Unless you need extreme overwhelming damage, which sometimes Arjuna Alter extreme overwhelming damage is useful. There are some challenge quests where he is better than Morgan just because of that mega damage he does. But unless you actually need that, Morgan bringing her extra utility and a little bit of support is huge. And hey, actually, there's a concept I haven't talked about because it hasn't come up in the gameplay, but I mentioned it offhandedly before, and that was NP overcharge. So, Noble Phantasms, in addition to having 5 levels just from leveling up with additional copies of the Servant, also have 5 levels of power, where you have base level and then 4 levels higher of what is known as overcharge. Overcharge is a mechanic that empowers some of your Noble Phantasm stuff. And we'll take a quick peek at Morgan's Noble Phantasm real quick on the next screen so that I can read it and I'll tell you what the overcharge is and everything. So, apply special attack, Round Table Knights or Fae 1 turn plus yourself, plus deal heavy damage with human attribute. Special attack damage increases with overcharge. There you go. Deals heavy special attack damage to all enemies with the human attribute. Special attack damage increases with overcharge. It'll always mention what increases with overcharge, which means that if you are charged beyond 100%, you get bonus damage against anyone that has the man attribute. And I have the numbers up for now. If you use a normal Noble Phantasm, you will deal 150% damage to any enemy that has the man attribute. 150% bonus damage. At 200% charge, you see her charge is at 107%. If you got that to 200%, 162.5% bonus damage. At 300%, you need to be at NP5 to be able to get to 300% charge, 175%. At 400% charge, which is not possible, you get 187.5% and 500% charge, 200% bonus damage. Now, I said 400% is not possible. How do you get to that? There are 2 ways. One is chaining Noble Phantasms. This is a mechanic in the game. If you use more than 1 Noble Phantasm in the same turn, even if it's 1 Noble Phantasm, a card, 1 Noble Phantasm, or Noble Phantasm card, it'll give you that overcharge on the second Noble Phantasm. It'll charge it to the next step. So if it's a 100% charge Noble Phantasm, just a normal shot, it'll be treated as a 200% charge. At 200, it's treated as 300, and so on and so forth. Or alternatively, any ability or craft essence that gives you a Noble Phantasm overcharge buff. There are some craft essences that'll equip and will give you overcharge that'll increase your MP stage by like 2 stages or something. On top of that, there are some skills that'll do that. Morgan Le Fay's Noble Phantasm will give an overcharge buff to all of her allies for 3 turns for +1 NP stage, as long as it's used within those 3 turns. Which means that if my first Morgan Le Fay uses Noble Phantasm on this wave, let's go ahead and do it. We'll get that little icon up. And once the buff's there, we'll look at it together, me and you chat. You can see the buff now, and anytime you want to check, you can touch your servant. This will show you the craft essence, their command cards, their MP, command codes, their passives here, append skills, which you don't got to worry about append skills at all right now. That's a little bit later. And if you go to status, you can see your buffs and debuffs. Overcharge level up. Increase overcharge level when using Noble Phantasm. Now, it doesn't tell you how much it is. You actually, like, there's a lot of information that's hidden from the player, and you have to actually, like, go look up a wiki online and stuff, which sucks, but what can you do? Anyway, this one in particular will overcharge your Noble Phantasm by 1 stage, for 1 use, and it lasts for 3 turns. Which means if I popped my Noble Phantasm with Morgan now, instead of 150% bonus damage to man, it would count as a 200% charge and do 162% bonus damage. Which means that if I use Morgan's MP, and then I get to 300% charge, I only need 1 NP before it to get to 500% charge, because at 300% charge, 1 MP before pushes it to 400% charge, and then the +1 overcharge gets it to 500 to the maximum bonus. Here's the thing. Most of the time, you're not going to care about overcharge. Except for one servant. One very specific, very meta, best servant in the game known as Caster Artoria. Caster Altria. Ugh, every time I say Altria, I want to vomit. Anyway, her Noble Phantasm is special in that its overcharge gives you one of the best abilities in the entire game. It gives you an unpierceable invincibility. There are some skills or abilities, Noble Phantasms, whatever, that can pierce invincibility or evasion. This can't be pierced. Unpierceable, 100%. They're just invincible. Now, it gives you the amount of hits is based on your overcharge. 1 hit of unpierceable invincibility at 100%, 2 at 200, 3 at 300, 4 at 400, 5 at 500. Which means, obviously, you want that number to be as high as possible to give the entire field as many invincibility hits as possible. It's the thing that sets her over the edge. Like, all 3 of her skills are already good, but that ability makes her the best boss fighter in the entire game. By a lot, too. Actually, we've got And the only thing that counters it is removing defensive buffs. So if the enemy doesn't have a way to remove the buffs, they have to chew through those hits or wait out the 3 turns before they go away. And hey, guess what? By the time those 3 turns are up, I bet you have another Noble Phantasm available for her to make yourself invincible. So yeah, it's extremely good. She is almost the only servant in the entire game you have to care about overcharging. I say almost because there's a couple here and there that also like overcharge, and sometimes you want to pay attention to it for the bonus damage you can get, or bonus defense down, or whatever it gives you, but 9 times out of 10, you don't really care. But I thought I'd at least mention it because it's a very powerful mechanic with Artoria Caster specifically. Caster Artoria, Castoria, really depends on overcharge and making sure you're paying attention to it. And it's why I like Morgan so much, because she can do boss fights that Arjuna Alter would struggle with because of that. Because you can bring that Caster Artoria and overcharge her and get extra invincibility hits while also dealing all that damage, you know? And something that was asked by Nutty K Slane again. Assume that the enemy attributes human, divine, etc. are hidden from players too. Some of them yes, some of them no. There's actually... Unfortunately, and I hate it that games still do this, this is a game that hides a fair bit of information from its players. And There are hidden stats such as star absorption rate, which is how likely a critical star is to go to their card compared to another servant's card. NP charge rate on attack, which is how much NP charge you gain when you hit enemies, and it goes into a formula based on the number. Death rate, which is how likely an instant death attack is to hit them. Star generation rate, which is how many critical stars, it goes into a formula, they generate on hit. MP charge when taking a hit on defense, which is how much MP you gain when taking a hit, that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of unsaid stats. There's traits like saber face or humanoid or man, non-hominidae servant, star servant, divine servant, round table knight, Enuma Elish nullification. There's so much. So much that is actually hidden from players, which I really wish it wasn't. And I hate when games do this. Now, the nice thing about the internet is that a lot of people online are willing to dive into the files, get all that information out, and then say, hey guys, here's how this works, that works, this works, that works, yada yada yada. There's also stuff that's not told to you, like numbers on skills. Like, for example, if I take a quick peek here at Charisma of Yearning, I thought it was called... no. Increase attack for 3 turns for all allies, plus increase MP gauge and decrease defense. It doesn't have any numbers. It has no numbers whatsoever, which is stupid, and I hate it. And I've complained about it from the day I began playing Fate Go. I said, this is stupid, and they should give me the numbers. Anyway... if you go on to one of the various wikis that exist, there are a couple, you can then go to the servant's page, and then I can scroll down and I can look at first skill, Charisma of Yearning. Let me go ahead and pop that open for myself. The wiki, Morgan Le Fay. Alright, Charisma of Yearning. Increase party's attack for 3 turns by 10% at level 1, then 11, 12, 13, 14, etc. 20% at level 10. Increase own NP gauge by 20% at level 1, 21, 22, yada yada, 30% at level 10. Decrease all enemies' defense for 3 turns by 20%, 21, 22, yada yada, 30% at level 10. Hey, that's nice. That's very nice to know those numbers. Second skill, which is charge 1 ally's MP gauge. Increase party's MP generation rate for 3 turns. Numbers? Charge an ally's MP gauge by 20% at level 10. Increase MP gain rate by 25% level 10. Etc, etc. It is nice to actually have the numbers. I really wish that the game would just have the numbers available. All the information. I can also see that Morgan Le Fay is a lawful evil servant. That's right, her alignments are lawful and evil. They could also be chaotic good, or true neutral, or etc, you know? Her traits are Artoria Face, Costume Owning, Fae, Humanoid, King, Non-Hominidae, Servant, 7 Knight Servant, Weak to Enuma Elish. And the reason that these traits and alignments mean anything at all is because, as was shown when I was looking through Morgan Le Fay's Nova Phantasm, her overcharge. Deal heavy special attack damage to all enemies with the human attribute, the man attribute. And then if I go to the wiki and I look up the human attribute, man attribute, in the wiki's case, if we're going by that, then what I get What I get, let me show it real quick, is this list here. Man attribute enemies. These are all the servants with the man attribute. As you can see, it's a lot. Here's all the normal enemies with the man attribute. There's a lot. And then here's all the servants that have special damage against man attributes. Right here below it. Very useful. Which means that anytime I use Morgan's NP against any servant in this list, they take bonus damage. Any enemy in this list, bonus damage. And if you're facing an enemy that has that attribute and they're a really tough enemy, then you can look down here for servants with special damage and be like, okay, these servants deal extra damage to that attribute. So that is where those traits and attributes come into play. Slightly complex. It has, like, the game has a little bit of depth to it here and there. I wish the depth of the game wasn't hidden behind hidden values, literally hidden, but it does contain a little bit of it. Just a little bit of it. Now, let me be upfront. Most of the time, you don't gotta care about those traits too much. And yes, some servants will change attributes depending on what ascension you have them in or a costume you have them in. For example, there's a servant known as Kama. She is a servant that comes in 3 different forms. Child, late teens, Dami Mommy Adult. And you can put her in whatever form you want. Some servants have buffs that'll hit child only, and thus will only buff her in her first ascension. If she's in her second or third ascension, she doesn't get the bonus from being a child. Whereas some other servants might have a buff that only affects, as was said in chat, a beast attribute servant. And a servant might not have beast attribute, but they have a bunny suit. And when they're in the bunny suit, they do have the beast attribute. Stuff like that. But usually alignments and traits are going to be consistent from one ascension to the next, or one costume to the next, as a generalized rule. Most of the time they're going to stay consistent, but you know, once in a while you might have to pay attention to. Once in a while. Skins are pay to win. No, because you don't buy skins with money in this game, only with in-game materials. What's the difference between power mod and super effective? This is getting a little bit more complex. So, essentially, there are 2 different types of special damage modifiers for certain skills and MPs in the game that are power mod or super effective modifiers. They're just terms that are used in the damage multiplier if you were to ever look it up. I don't think that anyone is really ever going to need to look that up in any way, shape, or form. But essentially, I guess the biggest difference between the 2, if I were to boil it down to something simple, is that anything that uses the power mod tag for special damage modifiers, which you won't see in game or anything like that. That's in the programming of how the damage modifier works, is an additive damage increase, whereas super effective is typically a multiplicative damage increase, which is why some of the old servants can deal so much damage. Like Uriel specifically has a much better multiplier used on her NP than more modern servants. That's why she does more damage than some 5 stars, despite being a 3-star. Same with Robin Hood. And honestly, what they should have done is list them a little bit more clearly, because, for example, Jack the Ripper has extra damage on her MP that says 50%. It's a plus 50%. It's a power mod. Meanwhile, there are others, like, say, Gilgamesh, that has extra damage, and it says 150%. This is multiplicative, 150%, so 1.5 times multiplier. And it would be nice if they made it a little bit easier to tell if it's a plus or a multiply. Generally, if it's a really big number above 100, it's probably a plus. But that's the difference between power mod and super effective. They're just modifiers in the damage formula, and one usually gives you a bigger increase than the other. Well, one gives you a bigger number than the other. Okay, jeez. So somebody asked if I had explained the stupidity that is class multipliers, and I didn't, because this is getting into the real nitty-gritty stuff, and I don't think most people care about this, but hey, we need something to talk about while we press red card against enemy face over and over again, so why not? So, in Fate Grand Order, there are 15 classes, I think, right now. Yeah. In Fate Grand Order, there are 15 classes of servant, and each class has a unique fit to them. And what chat was talking about was specifically modifiers to their base stats. So let's take Saber, for example. Every class has, oh cool, day reset, which means we get extra login bonus stuff. Hell yeah. Gimme. Anyway, so let's take Saber for example, and then we'll do like Berserker now. Sabers have a base damage multiplier of 1.0, which means that whatever damage number the Saber has for you, that's, you take it at face value. They have a base star generation rate of 10%. They have a base star absorption rate of 100. And they have a base death rate of 35%. None of these stats are going to be shown in the game. But essentially what that means is that you take whatever number is actually applied to the character, and then also add these base things for a small little formula for what their actual numbers are. You know what? Let's use Assassin. Let's use Assassin as our next example, because Assassin is truly a sad class. Assassin is the worst class in the game, and here's why. Many Assassins are quick-based servants, which is already a problem because quick is the weakest card type. Because quick cards have a base multiplier of 0.8 times damage. And it's supposed to be made up for in the game by you create critical stars and get critical hits, and that gives you bonus damage. That makes up for the lower amount of damage they do, and the critical stars, the critical cards also increase the amount of MP you can gain, and all that stuff that's supposed to help. But really, at the end of the day, it doesn't do enough. Simple as that. Simple as that. Assassins have a base damage multiplier of 0.9, which means that any assassin that you look at, whatever their attack is, let's take Sasaki Kojiro. His attack at his max base level is 5,735, which means that we have to then multiply that by 0.9 for his actual attack value and get 5,000... I'm just going to round. 5,200-ish, right? Something around that. That's his actual attack value instead of the 5,735. And then his Noble Phantasm is a quick card. So then we multiply that by 0.8 because it's a quick card. And really, he's using 4,200 as his attack value for the multiplier on his quick card as his base attack value. So instead of that 5,735 for the MP, we're using a 4,200-ish. I think the actual damage the damage calculation equation might throw it in at a different spot, and the numbers might get a little different. But this is, you know, just as an example. Just as an example. This is why Quick is considered not very good because of that base multiplier of 0.8, and why Assassins are generally not good because many Assassins use Quick, and they have that base multiplier of 0.9. Assassins make up for it a little bit by having a base star generation rate that's much higher than others at 25%. So Assassins create stars really well. Their job in this game is basically to create stars and then make crits happen. But like I said before, generally it doesn't make up for it, and in modern day Fate Go, you can make 50 stars with your servants real easy. There's a lot of servants that are meta that just shit stars out for funsies. Oops. Fuck you back there. Being an assassin is an actual debuff on your stats. Yes, it is. That's why I said assassin is actually the worst class in the game. Because it combines not only the fact that it's a debuff on your stats, but many, many, many assassins are quick as their Noble Phantasm. And you're just stacking a negative on a negative for your attack. In fact, I would say that there are maybe 6 or 7 assassins in the entire game that are worth using at any given time. There are like 50 assassins total in the game, and only 6 or 7 of them are any good. That's the harsh truth of it. Now, again, this is not to be all doom and gloom. If you want to use Sasaki Kojiro, who's a weak little bitch 1-star assassin, and make him work, you can do it. If you want to use someone who I think is a contender for worst assassin in the game, Phantom of the Opera, there's a guy who does nothing but use Phantom of the Opera for the whole game, and has beaten everything with him. With a lot of struggle, but he beat every single bit of the game with it. So, every servant can be used and be made to work. It's just how hard are you willing to work? Are you willing to work really, really hard? Then every servant is viable. Do you want things to be a little easier? Then there's a tier list. There's a very kind of set in stone tier list. Can he do it with Steno? Poor Steno. Yeah, Steno is also a servant you can get as a starting servant on your 4-star pool. She's not good. She's very, very not good. Poor girl needs some buffs. But yeah, so back to our original topic. Every single class in the game has these base modifiers. And I guess we'll go over them one by one. So sabers have a base damage multiplier of 1.0, star gen rate of 10%, star absorption rate of 100. Archers have a base damage multiplier of 0.95, which means they do slightly lower than their base damage. Base star generation rate of 8%, base star absorption rate of 150. They get stars a little bit easier. And you may think, well, Archer has 0.95%. Does that mean that Archer's bad? No, actually, Archer is one of the best classes in the game. There are very, very few bad Archers in the game. Almost all of them are good. The thing that makes a class good or bad is just the amount of good skills and NPs that the servants have at the end of the day. It just so happens... Oh, whoops. Anyway, it just so happens that archers almost all have really good skills and solid NPs. It just so happens archers really good. Lancer has a base damage multiplier of 1.05, so they do slightly more. Base star gen rate of 12%, base star absorption rate of 90, so they get slightly fewer of those. You see how this is working out. It all comes out to relatively even with each other on these stats. Not too big differences. The only time you feel the differences is when you combine negatives with negatives, like the assassins do very often. On top of, also most assassins just not having good skills. I don't know why, but they just didn't want assassins to be strong. But riders, base damage multiplier of 1.0, base star gen rate of 9%, base star absorption rate of 200. They have the highest base star absorption rate of all the classes, which means it's really easy to get stars onto their cards and go for crits. Casters have a base damage multiplier of 0.9, so they do less damage just like the assassins. Base star gen rate of 11%, base star absorption rate of 50, which is good. It's hard to get stars on casters. That's good, because most casters are supports. You don't want them having their stars. You want your damage to having your stars. Assassins, as we went over before, base damage multiplier 0.9, base star gen rate of 25%, which is really, really high. It's the highest in the game. Base star absorption of 100, which is, you know, the baseline, the kind of in the middle. Berserkers, base damage multiplier of 1.1 times, which is really good, so they get slightly more damage. But also, remember, Berserkers, for their class, do 1.5 times damage to every class they hit except one, which is an extra class you won't see till after part 1 of the game. Which means you take that 1.1 times, and you also add a, in a 1.5 times for their effective actual damage. So let's say we take Morgan. Let's say we take this level 100 Morgan, who has, like, what was it, 15,600, 15,700 attack? Yeah, we'll do 15,700 attack. You then multiply that by 1.1 because of being a berserk. That's 17,200? If I'm mathing that right. And then you multiply that by 1.5, and that should be 26,000-ish. So her actual base attack to work with is closer to 26,000 because of class advantage on top of the berserker class bonus. But this is going like deep into the damage formula and stuff, and I assume the vast majority of people are never going to look at the damage formula. Hell, I could pull up the damage if I wanted to. All right, here we go. So, the damage for any card that you use is as follows. And the damage formula is going to be a lot more involved than what it looks like on the surface, because that's just how it is in every video game ever. So the damage for this card is equal to Servant Attack times NP damage multiplier if it's an NP card, times, parentheses, first card bonus, plus, parentheses, card damage value, times, parentheses, 1 plus, card mod, n parentheses, n parentheses, n parentheses, times, class attack bonus, times, triangle modifier, times, attribute modifier, times, random modifier, times 0.23, times, parenthesis, 1 plus attack mod minus defense mod, and parenthesis, times critical modifier, times extra card modifier, times, parenthesis, 1 minus special defense mod, and parenthesis, times, parenthesis, 1 plus power mod plus self-damage mod plus parentheses, critical damage mod times is crit, end parenthesis, plus parenthesis, MP damage mod times is MP, end parenthesis, times parenthesis, 1 plus parenthesis, super effective modifier, minus 1, parenthesis, times is super effective, end parenthesis, plus damage, plus add, plus self-damage cut add, plus parenthesis, servant attack times buster chain mod, end parentheses. That is every single card's damage modifier. AKA, don't fucking worry about it, guys. Buff your damage dealer and hit the enemy with the buffed damage dealer. And there you go. That goes through all the stuff I've talked about before. It goes through your class attack bonus. It goes through any attribute modifiers. It goes through any class advantage modifiers. It goes through attack modifiers, defense modifiers on the enemy. It goes through level difference between you and the enemy. It goes through damage cut, damage plus, super effectivity, whether you used a buster card or not, whether it's the first card, the second card, the third card, whether it gained the first card, what the first card bonus was, whether you started with a quick, a buster, or an arts card, all that stuff. It's a lot. Which is why there's no real reason for me to go over it, but to fill time for fun. And let me tell you, this is the back end of every video game ever, is doing calculations like that all the time. All of them. Pokemon, Final Fantasy. Every single time you swing a sword in a Dark Souls game, it's doing a calculation like that. But you don't gotta worry about that. All you gotta worry about is class advantage versus class disadvantage, buffing your servant, debuffing the enemies, and what card you start with. Those are the big three things that you should worry about. Once in a while, you might need to worry about traits or attributes. But more often than not, you can ignore them. Anyway, I guess I'll hit the other classes. Extra classes. Rulers. So rulers are a special extra class. By the way, this is a boss fight for this this is the second to last boss fight in this part. And it's over. We won. The penultimate boss is defeated. So rulers. Let's get back into those. Rulers are a defensive class. They have an automatic damage reduction against almost every class in the game, where classes will do reduce damage to them. They have a base damage multiplier of 1.1 times, base star gen rate of 10%, and base star absorption rate of 100. Generally, rulers are more often than not better as a support than a damage dealer, but there are some damage dealing rulers that are solid. But because they have that defensive nature to them, they also, in their base stats, usually have a lot of HP and a little attack. Like if I look at Jeanne d'Arc, the first ruler in the game, she has, at max level of 90, 16,500 defense, or HP, sorry, and 9,593 attack. So, very defensive in nature. Next extra class we have are Avengers. They are super effective against rulers. And weak versus Moon Cancer. So this is another triangle. Ruler, Avenger, Moon Cancer is another rock, paper, scissors in the extra class. Where Ruler beats Moon Cancer beats Avenger, Avenger beats Ruler. Avengers have a base damage multiplier of 1.1 times, base star gen rate of 6%, base star absorption of 30. Avengers are typically very high attack stat, opposite of rulers, and good for attackers. So most Avengers are straight up just attacking servants. There are very, very few support Avengers or non-offensive Avengers. And hey, Orleans is done! Go us! If you want to hear the rest of these class things, pay attention to the next video when we go to Septum, the worst story in the game. Yay! And boop.